The last thing my manager said to me before security walked me out was, "You'll never survive without this place." He said it quietly, almost kindly, like he believed it. I thought about that sentence every single day for the next 3 years. And then I bought the building we were both standing in. Let me take you back. I was 21 when I joined that company. I gave them everything. Early mornings, late nights, weekends I should have spent somewhere else. I believed in what we were building, and more than that, I believed them when they told me I had a future there. I was wrong about the second part. It was a Tuesday, completely ordinary. My manager called me into a small meeting room. No agenda, no warning, just 2 chairs and a closed door. In the space of 4 minutes, 3 years ended. Budget cuts, he said. Nothing personal. He even shook my hand. I remember thinking, of all the things he could have said, he chose nothing personal. I walked home. I didn't take the bus, I just walked. The whole city felt like it was moving, and I was standing still. I kept replaying the meeting. 4 minutes. All that time. 4 minutes. I got home, sat down on the floor of my apartment, and for the first time in 3 years, I had nothing I was supposed to be doing. It was the strangest feeling I had ever had. And then one morning, I don't know why this morning and not another, I opened a notebook. Not a plan, not a CV, just a notebook. And I wrote one sentence at the top of the first page. What would I build if I wasn't afraid? I stared at it for a long time, and then I started writing, and I didn't stop for 4 hours. What I wrote surprised me. It wasn't a list of job applications. It was a business idea, one I had watched the company fail at for 3 years. They onboarded clients onto enterprise software, badly, slowly, expensively. Every client hated it. I had watched it. I had even suggested fixes. I had been ignored. So I wrote down what I would do instead. And it was good. I knew it was good. I had 3 months of savings. Enough to not panic, but not enough to be comfortable. I had a laptop, a kitchen table, and a problem I understood better than anyone. Most people wait until everything is ready before they start. I had learned, watching that company, that waiting for perfect is how things never get built. So I started. Day 1. The first week I barely slept. I built a rough prototype. Nothing beautiful, just functional. I wrote a 1-page summary of the problem and the solution. I sent cold emails to 40 people. People who ran small businesses that used enterprise software. People who I thought might recognize the problem. I got 4 replies. 2 of them told me to stop emailing them, but 2 of them didn't. One of those replies was from a woman named Clara. She ran a logistics company with 30 employees. She had been trying to onboard her team onto a new platform for 4 months. 4 months. She said what I built, even just the rough version, was the closest thing she'd seen to what she actually needed. She asked if she could try it. I said yes, before I finished reading her message. I spent the next 3 weeks building a proper version. Not perfect, but real. Something Clara could actually use. I made it visual, step by step, no jargon. The exact opposite of everything the company that fired me had built. I tested it myself 100 times. I found 40 things wrong. I fixed 40 things. Then I found 20 more. I fixed those too. 3 weeks later, video call with Clara. She shared her screen. I watched her navigate what I had built without any instructions. She just used it, naturally. When she reached the end, she looked at the camera and said, "I would pay for this." 3 words. That was the moment I knew I had a business. Not an idea, a business. That was January. By July, 6 months later, I had 5 paying clients. Small companies, each one a version of Clara's problem, each one paying a monthly fee. It wasn't life-changing money yet, but for the first time since they walked me out of that building, I was building something that was mine, and it was working. One of my clients referred me to someone else. Larger company, 80 employees. A proper sales meeting, in person. I had never done a formal pitch in my life. I prepared for 2 weeks. I stayed up the night before going over every possible question. I wore the one good jacket I owned. I took the bus. I was terrified. But I went. I talked for 25 minutes. They asked questions I hadn't prepared for. I answered as honestly as I could. When I didn't know something, I said I didn't know, but I'd find out. At the end, they said they'd be in touch. I shook hands. I walked out. I sat down on a bench outside and stared at the pavement for 20 minutes. I had no idea if I'd done enough. My phone buzzed 40 minutes later. An email. I read it standing up from the bench. They wanted to move forward. Contract 3 times larger than anything I had signed before. I didn't jump. I didn't cheer. I just stood there on that pavement, and I read it again, and then I put the phone in my pocket and started walking. I had work to do. By the end of year 1, I had 12 clients and 1 part-time employee. I learned more in that year than in 3 years at my old job. Not just about building a product, about myself, how I worked, what I was actually good at, what I needed help with. And slowly, without planning for it, something else was starting to happen. People were talking about what I had built. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon in November, exactly 2 years after I was fired, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up. The man on the other end said he'd heard about my work from someone who'd heard about it from someone else. And then he asked one question. Are you interested in growing this into something much bigger? I walked to my window. I looked out. I said, tell me more. I met him 3 days later. His office was everything mine wasn't. Glass walls, a view of the city, people in suits. I wore my black shirt. I didn't buy anything new. I sat down across from him and I felt, genuinely, like a tourist. But then he started asking questions, and I realized I knew every answer, every single one, because I had lived inside this problem for years. He asked me one question I hadn't prepared for. Why are you the person who should build this? I sat with it for a moment, and then I said, because I spent 3 years watching this problem be ignored by people who should have fixed it, because I was fired for caring about it too much. So if not me, who? He didn't say anything for a few seconds, and then he smiled. Over the next few months, we worked on a funding structure. I won't pretend it was smooth. There were weeks of legal documents I didn't understand, decisions I had never faced, moments where I genuinely didn't know if I was doing the right thing. But through all of it, I kept going back to the notebook and the question on the first page. That question had gotten me this far. With the investment, I hired 2 people, properly this time, salaries, contracts. One of them had more experience than me. That was uncomfortable. But I learned something that year I hadn't expected. Being the founder doesn't mean being the smartest person in the room. It means making sure the right people want to be in your room, and then getting out of their way. 2.5 years after I was fired, I got an email from someone at my old company. They were losing clients. Their onboarding process, the exact process I'd watched fail for 3 years, was costing them contracts. They wanted to talk. I read the email twice. I looked at my notebook. Then I looked at my team. Then I wrote back, yes. I walked into a meeting room at my old company. I recognized it immediately. Same walls, same fluorescent light, same 2 chairs. It was the room where they told me I'd never survive. I sat down, and this time, they were on the other side of the table, asking me for help. We talked for 2 hours. I came with data, case studies, results. But more than that, I came without needing to win. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped needing the revenge. I just wanted to build something good, and the best version of that, I realized, might include the company that had fired me. Not because I forgave them, but because the problem was still there, and I could still fix it. Afterward, I stood on the same pavement I had stood on the day they fired me. Same street, same building behind me, but it felt completely different. Not because I had won something, because I understood something I hadn't then, that being let go was the only way I was ever going to build what I built. The door closing was the beginning, I just didn't know it yet. 3 months of negotiations. And then one morning, a document arrived in my inbox. A sale agreement. The company that had fired me was selling to me. A division of it. The exact part I had watched fail. I signed it at my kitchen table. The same table where I had opened that first notebook. The same table where I had started with nothing but a sentence and 3 months of savings. A Tuesday afternoon in November, I walked into the building. I took the elevator to the floor I used to work on. I walked past the meeting room where they told me I'd never survive, and I sat down at the corner office, my office now. 3 years, 1 sentence, 1 notebook, 1 question. That's what it took. 3 years earlier, someone told me I'd never survive without that place. And here is what I want to tell you. They were right about the person who walked out that day. That version of me wouldn't have survived, because he never had to build anything from nothing. That's the story. But here is what I want to leave you with. Not the ending, the beginning, the notebook, the 1 question. Because wherever you are right now, whatever door just closed on you, your first page is blank. And that is not a setback. That is a start. The only question is what you write on it. If you've reached this part of the video, do subscribe if you want more. God bless you.